Because I lost all my self-respect, and for me, it didn't seem to be a slow spiral. My last drunk, it was kind of every emotion that I'd ever numbed up until that point hit me. And it was also my first God moment where I had one single thought when I woke up, and that was I was going to be dead by 23. It wasn't a question or a statement. It was almost like somebody was reading out of a history book, like, and he died at 23 because he didn't stop drinking.
Welcome to the Recovery at Edge cast. My name's Alfredo. I'm an alcoholic. And today I'm sitting here with three other guest hosts that I'm very happy to have. What an honor. I guess I'll allow you guys to introduce yourselves.
Oh, thanks, Alfredo. Hi, my name's Kristen. I'm alcoholic. My sobriety date is August 8th of 2017. My home group is Happy Trudgers at the Trinity Church in downtown Denver. I guess a little bit about myself nowadays. I work at a law firm downtown. I guess I don't really know what else you want to know.
That's good enough.
All right, cool.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I'm Cody. I'm an alcoholic. My home group is the New Hope group at the Wren Church in Firestone. My sobriety date is August 24th, 2019. I like to snowboard.
All right, nice.
My name's Jen. I'm an alcoholic, and my sobriety date is September 29th, 2014. And my home group is the Came to Believe group, usually at York Street, Monday, Wednesday, Friday at noon, but lately on Zoom.
All right, welcome aboard, everyone. And I'm Alfredo. I don't know, I have my home group, basically I got sober at Trudgers, and then I got the three groups in my little town that I go to. I kind of consider them my home groups because they're once a week. And I'm just like, okay, New Hope, Thirst Quenchers on Tuesday nights, and Rule 62 Sunday nights. So thanks for coming aboard, everyone. Today's topic is Step 1. We admitted we were powerless over alcohol, that our lives had become unmanageable. How do you complete Step 1?
My name's Kristen. I'm alcoholic. Step 1 for me, it sounds so simple coming out of the book, admitted that we were powerless and that our lives had become unmanageable. The first half of Step 1 for me took quite a many years. Quite a many years. I think I tried to manage every which way possible. I was a very selfish individual because all I really cared about was not having to feel feelings. And so I used a lot of alcohol and I used a lot of drugs to cover that up. And, when you do certain drugs, you can drink a whole lot more. And the combination of those things, I don't know. I had to go to jail several times. I had to be on probation several times. I think I don't remember if it's like 10 or 12 times I've been arrested. I think I had 3 DUIs by the time I was like 25 or 27. I don't even remember timelines, really.
Wow.
But I had an interlock in my car for 5 years. And that was a fun experience. Did all the DUI classes and the sober homes and the halfway houses and everything else. And I just, I don't know. I came to a place where I was like, maybe it is possible that I'm an alcoholic. I don't think so. Like, I knew I had other problems other than that, but none of them ever seemed to get as bad unless I, was drinking first. And so coming to terms with that even was a process. It's not something that just happened overnight for me. And, lately, even with 3 years without a drink, I'm still noticing the unmanageability in my life when I try to run things on my own, when I'm not even consciously doing it. Just kind of that's what I refer to as like going back to default mode. And I guess in a way that's kind of a gift, just because like I remember just from day one this last time. Remember, Jen? How lovely that day was. But
well, now you have to expand on that briefly.
Okay. Well, last time I went out, trying to remember what happened first. I think I was going to try to see if I could do drugs without drinking to see if like it worked on the other way around too. I was like, I'm just going to try this and see if it works. If I don't drink while I smoke crack, then so that's just how my mind works, right? It seemed perfectly logical to me at the time. I don't know. And I don't remember how long I was out.
2
I don't know. 3 weeks?
2 weeks.
2 weeks? Yeah, I ran that 2 weeks pretty hard into the ground. I don't know how I even ended up in this crack house that was off of 27th and Champa. And I remember one of the drug dealers in that house told me that the devil lived in that house. And, like, he was real serious about it, too. And for whatever reason, I just could not get out of there. I wanted to get out so bad, and I just couldn't. I was, like, literally, like, physically something took over my body, and I could not control it no matter how bad I wanted to. I wanted out, and I couldn't get out, you know. And so I think I ended up just walking around Denver. I remember I had blisters on my feet I had flip-flops on, and I probably walked like 15 miles in a day just out of nervousness, not knowing what to do, you know, that inner struggle of like, I know that I need help, but I don't know what to do, like the shame and everything all over again, just, you know, just that walk of shame one more time. It was just a moment in time where the forces of the universe came together in such a way that God made it very clear to me that I had two choices, and that was to accept spiritual help or go on to the bitter end, whatever alcoholic death that looked like. And I don't know why it was such a hard decision for me, but that lady sitting across the table from me right now was there for that, along with my dad. And I am forever grateful for you being there for me that day, Jen, because you giving me just that little, like, extra whatever it was that I needed to walk in those doors. The people in my building thought I was a homeless person, so they had to try to sneak me in the back. And the security came down. They were like, "What are you doing?" And I was like, "I live here." They were like, "Okay." But it was just a humiliating experience. And so I think I detoxed for a couple days and then did the, once again, walk of shame back into Trudger, still feeling pretty shitty. I don't know, 3 or 4 days later, whatever it was, that I finally was able to get out of bed and eat something. But yeah, I don't ever want to go back there again. So if God can remove the obsession for someone like me to drink when nobody else could, no other person or institution, judicial system, judge, whatever.
So if you were to summarize, then how did you complete step one then? How do you complete step one if you have to give an instruction to someone?
See, that's the thing that I don't think that we can give to newcomers, and that's the thing that is what we, I think, in our 12-step are trying to pass along, because, you know, for me, I think I went to my first AA meeting when I was 17 years old, and didn't go back there till I was like 33 or something like that. And it's just not something that we can give away. I don't know. For me, God really had to be very clear that I'm sick of your shit and I will take your life if I have to. And it was really that cut and dry clear for me. And I didn't know if I could do it, but I'm sitting here today, so.
I think what Kristen's story really demonstrates, at least in my experience, is that my drinking gave me my first step. I just didn't know it until I got into the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous. And because that phrase that you were describing of sort of wanting desperately to leave and not being able to leave, I mean, to me, that feels like the end of my drinking, where I drank when I didn't want to drink, right? I mean, I would crawl out of bed in the morning, wanting to die, saying I wasn't going to drink that day, take a Xanax so I could make it without withdrawing in my 10-minute drive to work. Like, I have a friggin' short commute and had to take a Xanax to stave off the booze. But by 3 p.m. on that day when I said I wasn't going to drink, I was putting a fake appointment on my work calendar, and suddenly I was at Argonaut. And then suddenly I was on my front porch, and then suddenly all of the bourbon and the beer was gone.
And suddenly you're at the crack house after that.
Right? You know, that was never my jam, but I think mostly because bourbon worked so well until it didn't. But I didn't know. So when I was sitting on my front porch dying of alcoholism at the age of 39, I didn't know I was alcoholic. I thought an alcoholic was a man who lived under the bridge, who had had lots of DUIs, who had lost his job, who had lost his home, who had lost his wife, who had lost his family.
With the paper bag and the 40.
With the paper bag. And I had none of that. Never had a DUI, never lost a job, probably came close. Didn't lose my marriage, didn't lose my house, didn't lose my car, didn't lose my family. But at the end of my drinking, I wanted to kill myself so desperately because I kept waking up alive, right? Like, being an alcoholic is when you honestly want to, you can't stop drinking. And once you start, in my experience, I get so freaking thirsty, I will drink every drop in the house and will crawl over broken glass to get to the liquor store to buy more.
And the mind obsession is what is the worst. That's
And
the torture.
And I didn't know that made you an alcoholic. So my drinking gave me my first step. I just didn't know it until I was in a room of Alcoholics Anonymous, sitting across from the woman who took me through the steps, reading the big book and going, oh my God, that's me. Like, I'm not the only one who drank like that. Not the only one who couldn't go a day without a drink. And not necessarily because I was physically addicted, but because my mind was screaming at me. And I was so nervous and angry. Like, I thought I had an anxiety disorder.
Yeah, me too.
But really, just a fucking alcoholic.
You probably do too.
You know. Oddly enough, though, haven't had any anxiety attacks in sobriety. You know, like, oddly enough, all of that is gone.
It's funny how that works. That happens to me. I mean, it happened to me. Like, it's like I didn't come here to cure my panic attacks, but I don't get them anymore.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I fit in my own skin, finally.
Yeah, well, sometimes. Maybe like 8% of the time.
So, Cody, how do you complete step one?
Yes,
Talk to me about
Cody.
step one.
Well, for me, step one was a shotgun blast to the chest the first time I said it. And even now, some days, depending on the day, it kind of takes me back because I'll get in a mindset where it's not at the forefront. You know, I'm not constantly thinking about it. And so saying I'm an alcoholic admits inside of me that I am one. You know, it reminds me that that's what I am an alcoholic. I have that. It's not ever going to go away. And if I don't stay on top of it, I'm going to go right back out. I like that part that you were saying about the depression and the panic attacks. So that's kind of gone. My mom has had severe depression her entire life. So I just assumed that I inherited that from her genes. And I figured coming in at AA, well, I'd stop drinking, but I'd probably still have to see a therapist. I'd probably have to take medications if I wanted to fix that side of everything. And less than a year later now, I haven't had a single panic attack since month 4. My depressive episodes maybe last a couple of hours. And then even then, they're not as nearly as bad as they used to be. They're not debilitating anymore, and I can still get stuff done. And something that the program has taught me is to get stuff done to get through those attacks, to get past that depression, because I think that's the part of it's a program of action. And by acting, even in the smallest way, you know, doing the dishes or going to a meeting, just doing something, anything is better than just sitting on the couch obsessing, which is a big part of what I used to do. Was I would just sit around waiting for something to happen, worried I'm going to miss something, and drinking anyway, so it's not like I could go anywhere to do anything that I thought I was going to miss, and I missed everything anyway. I came in because I lost all my self-respect, and for me, it didn't seem to be a slow spiral. My last drunk, it was kind of every emotion that I'd ever numbed up until that point hit me. And it was also my first God moment where I had one single thought when I woke up, and that was I was going to be dead by 23. It wasn't a question or a statement. It was almost like somebody was reading out of a history book, like, and he died at 23 because he didn't stop drinking. And my immediate next thought was I should ask my buddy if he wants to go grab a beer because I had called out sick in my blackout. And I wasn't going to work that day anyway. So that doesn't tell you, how insane the alcoholic mind is. There's a good example.
Makes perfect sense to me.
I just love, that's
Yeah.
the beauty. Like, one of the things I love so most about Alcoholics Anonymous is the laughter. And like only a bunch of other drunks would hear someone say, well, I called out sick to work in a blackout and think it's freaking hilarious. But it is, because it's so classic alcoholic.
So one of the things that I found in step one that really helped me anyways, or that I find interesting, is that how they write our lives are unmanageable and not like your life is unmanageable. It's like you're not alone, and that even though I didn't understand it, that wasn't the first thing I thought when I read it the first time on the wall, to me, it probably sounded like your life is unmanageable and these guys have their act together or something. But looking at it now, it's like, no, this is a we thing. It's everybody who's here can relate.
And that beautiful word "we" at the first word of the first step, right? We. I don't know about you guys, but for my whole life, I always felt apart. And, booze was the magic sauce, the potion that made everything fit together. And, I was prettier and funnier and sociable and fit in and not awkward and not an outsider anymore. And losing that was terrifying, that whole jumping off point. But the first time I walked down the stairs at Treasures, which was my first home group, it was like I could breathe for the first time because, I was coming out of a treatment center, and so I didn't really know what recovered alcoholics looked like. I just knew what women in their first 30 days looked like, which is crazy. And so walking down the steps at Treasures and seeing other professionals was huge to me. And that word "we," and it was like I could breathe because I could turn to any of them, and did, and say the things that were my deepest bewilderments. The big questions, like I didn't understand why I did the things I did. And they would laugh because they'd been there, done that, had the rewards, and they're like, let us show you how we, do this deal.
So you were crazy in your first 30 days.
I was institutionalized, right? I was at a treatment center.
Here, then.
Yeah. I mean, I was
qualifies as crazy, I think.
I was given the gift of an intervention.
Did a shrink have to give you meds to bounce your mind back?
No.
Okay.
But I almost turned down the help that was offered to me.
Yeah, that's crazy.
I'd been telling my neighbors or anyone who walked by my house that I was going to kill myself, and they reached out and called my parents. 39 years old, and strangers are looking my parents up in the phone book and calling them. And so a week later, I had an intervention that I knew was coming because a dear friend gave me the heads up. But all that is to say, I sat through my family, telling me how terrified they were that I was going to die. And I was so angry, and I felt so defensive of my drinking, and I had a plan, right? I had called my doctor. She had denied my request to come attend my intervention to tell them I wasn't alcoholic. She had suggested, I am not kidding, I did that. I made amends. But
Doctor sounds cool.
My doctor is awesome. Look me up, happy to pass on a referral. She's fabulous and now thinks I'm hilarious, but because I don't lie to her anymore. But I sat through all of that, and my whole plan was that I was going to go to yoga and I was going to meditate and I was going to take some class at Kaiser. So there was no reason for me to go away to treatment for 30 days because I was so important.
I'm
the
pretty
world.
sure I've taken that class at Kaiser. Wouldn't have worked.
I was just saying, since I met you after, clearly it didn't work. But anyway, but so I sat through all of that, and I initially said no, even after they read a letter from every one of the partners in the company I worked for encouraging me to go to treatment. I was still saying no. And my husband just said, "What do you have to lose?" And for whatever reason, that was the magic phrase that dinged through to me. And the next thing I knew, I was like, okay. And so for me, that was God, right? Like hearing that from Dave was God coming through, and I was on my way to Estes Park. And so, yeah, first 30 days, you're freaking nuts.
Yeah. What does unmanageability look like for you guys today, now that you guys have some time?
Like unmanageability now or then?
Let's do both. Let's do now and then.
Well, I think the immediate answer would be like, obviously, I can't control this. I hate to say it, but this COVID pandemic. I know I went there. And I'm just
Look at
watching.
him.
I know. I'm sorry, Cody, but it's the biggest in my face thing I see now, where nobody can control it, and it's unmanageable. But we're trying our hardest. We're trying so hard, and I almost feel
That's
like
actually a really good example.
I almost feel
actually.
like I'm throwing in the flag. Like, you know what? I give up. I give up. I'm gonna go outside or whatever. Like, I don't know. I just feel like that's one of the best examples in my face right now. And though it's not causing anything too crazy for me, it did throw a monkey wrench in my routine. I can't, like, I do like 7 meetings a week or something like that. But I drank like every night, so I needed it. And I would wake up at 5 a.m. and go run and get on the bus and go to work. I had like my routine. And then all of that was just taken away from me, and I was just found alone, like me. And then I really had to, look deep inside at me now. And I found out how much of my spirituality was lacking, And so I can't live like that forever. But I had to sit down with this thing, this darkness, and face it and go through it. I don't know. Maybe that answers the question.
That's legit, Alfredo.
So I was I think I went dark in April. And for me, like, because sobriety has been so beautiful and, and not to say that tough spots haven't happened in my sobriety, but in general, I have this, core of serenity most of the time. And so when we stopped going to the office and when we stopped having meetings at York Street, I went to Zoom and all of that. My husband's also newly sober for the first time. So he just had 8 months last week. So it was just us in the house sober. And I realized how much of my connection to God came from working with others. And so a couple months of no contact with any newcomers exposed some real holes in my program. And I was in a Zoom meeting with my home group, and one of the guys who is just, for whatever reason, he has been on fire this whole COVID time, singing to my heart. And we had a meeting, and we were talking about the bedevilments on page 52, and he started listing them off, and he just kind of gruffly said, if any of those are true for me, I need to go back through the work. And it was like, pow, because all of them were true for me. I was like, oh, shit, I have to go through the steps again, which I love doing. But
thank God for them, because I'm sure that's what saved me.
Oh, my God, me too.
Right now,
I mean,
is the steps.
And it's been an
and working
incredible
with another woman.
experience. Yeah. And so I'm working with someone different. I love the woman who has been my sponsor and guide from the beginning, but like God was telling me, like, you need a new experience, and I'm getting that, and I'm seeing like more layers, more being peeled off, and I want more, and I'm not willing to tolerate misery.
So at least for me, pride prevented me from admitting I was powerless over alcohol. I knew that once I identified as an alcoholic, or said it out loud at least, that I couldn't take that back. I mean, alcohol was part of my identity, and I was proud of it. What do you think, Cody?
I think a big part of it was pride. I think another big part of it was my ego. If somebody asked me to describe myself, it'd be a narcissistic asshole before I came in. And I was proud of that. That was a very this is who I am, this is who I'm going to be. And if you don't like it, you can screw off. And so a big part of it for me was just, I didn't ever want to have a problem with alcohol. And so I never thought about it. I never thought about how often I was drinking or trying to control it. That my biggest concern was how many calories were in beer. So I started drinking whiskey all the time. And that was, in terms of trying to change my drinking, that was the biggest part, was just I didn't want to look fat from all the beer.
That's legit.
That and whiskey hits a little bit harder sometimes, especially if you haven't eaten all day. But it was the pride. I didn't want to give up my time. Not that I was doing anything worthwhile with it anyway, but I didn't want to go to a meeting once a week or twice a week or any days of the week, because that was my time and I'm going to do what I want to do with it. And that spread not just to Alcoholics Anonymous, but to every aspect of my life. If I didn't want to do something, I had an excuse, or I didn't have enough time. And it didn't matter why I didn't have enough time. I just didn't have it for you if I didn't want to give it to you. And so I think that's a big part of what drove my drinking and kept me out of it, kept me out of AA, was that I didn't, just the ego. I didn't want to lose that. I didn't want to not be on top and be the best. And at least in my own mind, be better than everybody I'd ever met. And if you were better than me, you still weren't. It didn't matter. I was still better in some way. So that was probably the hardest thing to overcome coming in.
Losing to win. I'll just read this from page 22 here. Then we had been told that so far as alcohol is concerned, self-confidence was no good whatever. In fact, it was a total liability. Our sponsors declared that we were the victims of a mental obsession so subtly powerful that no amount of human willpower could break it. So pride and willpower, that was a big one for me. I could do this myself, which I always told myself. I could do this myself. I could drink less. And honestly, drinking less was worse for me than just drinking every day, because I was suffering, because I was thinking about it so much. And when I finally would go 3 or 4 days or whatever, it felt more of a reward. And then the floodgates were just right back open. I was just on again. Because I thought I could stop at any time. Well, I couldn't help but to start again. That was my problem. What do you guys think?
I think that was wired into my DNA, raised to be independent and strong. And as a teenager, I rejected the religion of my childhood because I thought God was for the weak, and that a real successful businesswoman I wanted to be stood on her own 2 feet, very rugged individualist, very Ayn Rand, all of that. And so and nothing in my life that I had set out to do I ever didn't succeed at, right? So that was partly the torture of drinking, because no matter how hard I tried, no matter what arrangements I made, I still ended up, drunk in the pile of puke and having to check who I drunk texted, drunk called, or drunk emailed. And, what horrible things did I say to my husband that night that I don't remember. And I think, honestly, Alfredo, that's why I didn't say I was an alcoholic out loud until I was 39 years old. I had my first real drink at 13. So I drank for 26 years. And, that was powered all by power and willpower. Thus, to the point where I would Google, what the hell is wrong with me? And on the screen would come up Alcoholics Anonymous. And I would slap my laptop down as hard as I could, right? Because that was the one thing that couldn't be the problem. It had to be my husband. It had to be my job. It had to be I just wasn't trying hard enough. It couldn't be the booze.
What do you think, Kristen?
Well, I was just thinking, I don't even know, I don't remember your question now.
That's okay.
Pride and
willpower.
Pride and willpower, yeah. You know, I'm really good at lying to myself and not looking at things, so I don't. And that's where my selfishness and self-centeredness takes root, because, yeah, being an alcoholic was a lot of work. And no matter what I tried at any point from the time, you know, that the first time I picked up a drink when I was like 16 years old or whatever, it seems like nothing that I touched worked ever. And so when I ask you guys about your experience with unmanageability today, you know, I'm just curious, because for me, as an alcoholic, you know, I thought that my unmanageability at first, when I first came into the rooms, was due to my drinking, you know. And so I thought that's what admitting being an alcoholic was, you know, just because I said it out loud. Yeah, I mean, I guess it's hard to do that initially. But for me, that wasn't a first step experience. I had to, when they talk about in the book, you know, admit to your innermost self. I didn't, I guess, know what my innermost self was until I had that experience. You know, because I had been so good at avoiding and not looking at and lying to myself and finding distractions so that I didn't have to look at it.
I think that's what's hard about, you know, once you're sober for a little bit of time, how is it that you still have unmanageability? You know, I went through big phases of like, why am I not fixed? Yes. I haven't had a drink in X amount of time. I've done the steps. Why do I still sometimes forget to pay a bill? Why do I still sometimes just want to veg out on the couch and watch Netflix or whatever unmanageability looks like, right?
Yeah, or I want to, you know, eat too much or pick up the credit card if that doesn't work.
Or I just want everyone to leave me alone.
Yes, leave me alone.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
For me, I had a self-realization throughout some of this stuff that when I feel like I've lost my mind, that is unmanageability. It doesn't mean I'm going crazy. It means I can't control what it wants to think or feel. When it wants to take you through sadness or depression, sometimes happiness, when you get to that point, I feel like I have reached some unmanageability. And I can compare it to my alcoholism because I couldn't stop thinking about drinking. Even in my first crazy 30 days, beyond that even, when I wasn't...
You're not crazy anymore, Alfredo?
Well, yeah, I am.
Okay, cool.
I'm a good crazy.
All right, cool.
But I couldn't not think about it not drinking. Like, I'm not drinking right now. I'm not drinking right now. What am I going to go do tonight? I'm going to go home and not drink. That was my activity.
Right.
And at that point, I think my life was still unmanageable. At least my mind was, because I couldn't control it. And when I get to that point these days, sometimes it's more of an emotional thing, like this sadness, this heartbreak or whatever just wants to grab a hold of me, and I try to fight it. But the same principles will overcome that too. Like, I give up. If I'm supposed to be sad, I'm sad, you know? Like, I don't have to like try and fight it. And I only learned that from surrendering.
The 10th step promises, you know, like that obsession with booze is relieved. Like, we cease fighting everything and everyone, even alcohol, right? And so for me, that resistance, like when I feel like I'm really resisting, that to me is a signal that I'm trying to manage something, right? Like that something is not going the way that I think it should, or I'm not getting something I want, and I'm not, you know, sort of, God, get out of the way. I'd like to handle this. I'm in resistance. And like in contrast, when I practice the evening review, and one of the questions is, you know, were we, you know, fighting basically, or were we in this packing what we could into the stream of life? And like, that's when I'm not when I'm in the stream, I'm in the flow. I'm in that world of the spirit. I'm present. I'm present, right? I'm not freaking about the future or obsessing about the past.
I love being in the stream.
Yeah. And so I miss it when I'm out.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, dang it. You have to take this to God. I have to 10-step this. I have to tell someone what I've been up to.
And I've never been good at managing my emotions either. Like, even still, I don't know if it's just because I'm a girl or or what. But yeah, I mean, emotion for me is still kind of hard sometimes because, I mean, the whole purpose of numbing myself was so that I didn't have to feel anything. So I didn't feel anything.
Well, and I think it's about not managing our emotions. You know what I mean? Like the bedevilment just says, you know, like we can't control our emotional natures. For me, it's less like trying to control what I'm feeling, but to get clear on what's really going on.
Right.
You know what I mean? And I like, am I in fear? Am I in anger? Am I being dishonest? And
That's
then being
when
able
I
to take that to
willing
God.
To do the work, though, you know, like that's what I have to be in enough pain to be willing to take the actions. And, you know, I was kind of hoping that'd be over the first time you go around this mountain, you know.
Why am I not fixed?
Why am I not fixed?
Right?
Yes.
Like, yay, great, I'm not drinking myself to death anymore, but, you know, I'd like to be
I know,
fixed
but
now.
I mean, if I let myself think about it too much, it's kind of depressing. Like, why am I not fixed, you know?
Because there's purpose.
Yeah.
Because this definition of fixed, I think, might be something you made up and you'll never be able to reach it. Like, is somebody else telling you need to get this to be fixed? Or are you telling you this?
I don't know. I'm still trying to align my will with God sometimes. Mm-hmm. And I have to ask him for help with that because, you know, I mean, if it's convenient for me, great. But if not, you know, there's an issue. And I just have to ask for help even with that because, like...
What if you just ask yourself, am I making progress?
Then I am satisfied, yes. Then I'm satisfied. But it's spiritual progress, not perfection. But I still want to be perfect. You don't understand, Alfredo.
I know. And this,
even
this
as a recovering crackhead, alcoholic junkie, like I still want to be perfect.
And create the unattainable perfect, right?
Yeah.
Like, and it's always a moving target. You know, I thought fixed was I paid my bills on time and I showed up for work on time and I didn't ditch out on my family on holidays. But, you know, now like the standards have risen. What the hell?
So, do you have to hit rock bottom to get to step one?
I think the rock bottom part is interesting. I think everybody has their own rock bottom. And I think that's pretty evident if you talk to more than one person about their story because, you know, my rock bottom is not nearly as close as some of the guys or gals in the rooms. And when I first came in, I was sitting there going, am I really an alcoholic? Because I'm not even close to that. And so I think the rock bottom differs for everybody. And I like my sponsor, Alfredo. When I first talked to him, he said a really good thing of, we both got to the same place. You just got there quicker. And for me, that was really a deciding factor that I didn't need to compare myself because in my mind, I was there.
Do you think it makes you weak when you admit that you're powerless over alcohol?
I would have to say it takes a lot more strength to admit it than you would automatically think because it's hard because nobody wants to say that they've hit rock bottom. Nobody wants to say that they don't know what to do. And I think being powerless just means that you don't know where you're going. You don't know how to do it. And that's okay, especially in this program, you know, going to God with that. For me, you know, there's another good saying that I like, and I don't know how he does, I'm going to let him. And that's big for me because a lot of times there are a lot of situations where I think I have a purpose in that situation. I think that I have power in it and I can do something. And the reality is I don't and can't do anything. I don't have to and I can't do anything. And God shows me that and he tells me that. It reminds me that I'm not the center of the universe and my life isn't that big. My problems aren't unmanageable for him as much as they are for me. And so giving a lot of that over and being powerless to him makes my life a lot more manageable in my mind. It makes me a lot less irritable, discontent, depressed, and it makes the days flow a lot smoother.
Thoughts, Kristen?
Could you define rock bottom, please?
I think it's different for everyone.
I agree. I agree. It's interesting that you would bring this up because earlier today I was thinking about, like self-confidence. Okay, so like, I'm not confident in myself, but I want to be able to be solid in my confidence in the one who has all knowledge and power, and that's, I think, what I'm working towards, and that's why we can't live off of, yesterday's experience, I guess. And that's another thing that I'm learning that I've heard Jen say for years now, and it's just really, starting to sink in really what that means. Yesterday's experience isn't going to keep me sober tomorrow, it's literally a day at a time thing, And so it is kind of like I die every night and wake up and have to handle things. I wish I would have gone through the steps when we had discussed it before, because then maybe I wouldn't feel like I am today. But who knows?
It's like you're having the experience you're having now, though. I really believe lack of power was our dilemma.
Yeah.
And I didn't know that it was my dilemma, but they use the word past tense, right? Like lack of power was our dilemma. And like now I have that power in my life when I choose to get out of its way and to not try to arrange the set like that. And beer and bourbon was my power for a really long time, and it fueled me and took me to a lot of places. And certainly if you were on the outside looking in, you wouldn't think I was at rock bottom again, right? Because I think we all sometimes in the world assign physical characteristics or economic characteristics to what a rock bottom is, or criminal characteristics to what a rock bottom is. Not saying I didn't drive drunk. I did. I just didn't get caught. But, I think that for me it was a spiritual rock bottom, and I didn't know it. It was that like gaping, empty black hole on the inside that I couldn't fill ever. And as a child of the 80s, like in the 80s, every TV show, like quicksand was the big problem, like on the A-Team or whatever, like quicksand. And like inside, I felt like I was always in quicksand, like no way to crawl out. And to me, that's rock bottom. So for me, it was having to reach that place where a tiny grain of me wanted to live just enough to do the hardest thing for me personally, which was to ask for help and accept it. And I have a friend who, when he tells his story, he talks about how asking another man in Alcoholics Anonymous for help was the hardest thing he ever had to do. And I think that's still true for me today.
Yeah, it's a four-letter dirty word.
It is. I associate all kinds of, and it's funny, right? Because when I'm working with others, I'm like, oh my God, you can call me anytime. Seriously, I'll pick up unless I'm in an AA meeting or a work meeting. And I'm here to help. I'm here to help. I'm here to help. And like that is abundantly offered to me, yet I find it a terrifying prospect still, So
I guess it depends who you ask. If being powerless, admitting that, if it's weakness or not. I think that God's awesomeness is made perfect in my weakness and yours.
Mm-hmm.
That's just been my experience.
And that experience of powerlessness, I think, on the other side is our greatest strength, right? Because only another alcoholic can sit down with somebody else and truly get what it's like that alcoholic suffering. Mm-hmm. And what an extraordinary gift we've been given to be able to say to that person, I've suffered like you. If you want, we can show you how to stop suffering. Like that can be eased. And it's only through sharing our experiences on those dark nights of the soul or dark days or whatever, like that win the trust of that other person. You know, like my life before was all driven by, like, can I make a lot of money? Can I buy a house? Can I marry and like get professional accolades, blah, blah, blah.
What you look like on the outside.
Yeah. When inside I'm dying. And yet now I really don't care about any of that. I mean, like, yes, someday, I mean, I like having a job. I like being married. I like my house. But you know what I mean? Like, but they're not like the shiny stars that make me feel like I'm living a purposeful life. 'Cause I never felt like I lived a purposeful life. But like the gift that being recovered from alcoholism has given me just in meeting people like you guys. I mean, like, how fucking cool is that? Like watching you guys get sober. Cody, I'm sure your journey was awesome. But having seen Kristen and Alfredo get sober, like, it's like goosebumps.
It's
you know?
definitely cool to meet me.
Well, yeah, duh. Hello.
Cody's like, oh my God.
Talking about ego. Oh my God.
I'm kidding.
Well, it is, and we do have it's a we are a group of people who wouldn't normally mix. I was talking to my brother today, and he had heard the last podcast that you and I had done, and he's like,
Really?
he's like that guy's a good interviewer. The voice thing again. He's like that guy.
God.
You have the best radio
Yeah,
voice.
yeah.
I've
And
been
he's
in
like,
the,
you
like,
guys
the
sound
wrong
like you're
industry
really
my whole
close.
life.
And I was like,
See, it's
I
a
know
gift.
Alfredo from being in meetings and stuff. Like, we've never really hung out, but he's like, well, you guys seem like you know each other pretty well. I was like, well, when you sit in a meeting with someone for years at a time and all the shit we talk about, I mean, I guess.
Yeah. You might know some things that
Yeah.
others might not.
Yeah.
Right. And so, like, going from being alone to having a tribe, and like a tribe where I can say things like, it took me 6 months sober before I finally decided to open the pile of mail that was 2.5 feet tall in my house because I was afraid of the letter from the IRS that was buried somewhere on the inside of that pile. And everyone at Treasures laughed their asses off and then told me to take pictures of the pile and what it looked like when I was done. You know?
I was, I was the same way. And I was so like, I can't pay my school loan. Oh my God. You know, it's so much money. And they would sit down and call me and we would take an inventory of all my finances. And they'd be like, we don't understand where $600 is disappearing to every month. You know? I mean, I know.
Me either. It's so mysterious.
Weird.
But now I just pay it. And I'm like, oh, I can't believe I can pay it. I can give money to the church. I'm not dying. You know?
I don't lie to doctors anymore.
Yeah. I can open my mail. I mean, I'm still kind of slow at it, especially when it's like a toll bill. I'm just like, oh.
Well, I can still
These
come
guys.
into a room of AA today and tell you guys I still don't feel like I fit in my own skin all the time, you know? And you guys know what I'm talking about. That makes me feel like a little bit less of an alien rather than an Earth person.
Yeah. Well, and who's to say we're not the Earth people and they're the aliens?
That's good.
That's
I
good.
have
I
actually
like it.
thought about that before. We could have some discussions about this, but
Wow, we need
We'll
another
save that for
episode.
another
where it's
time.
like,
We do,
wow.
yes.
The alien piece may be a bit of an outside issue.
I don't mean that literally. It's more figuratively speaking.
Well, and what I think is interesting about the trust in AA is you can't explain it to anybody outside of AA. I can say anything, and you can say anything, and it's never going to leave.
I'll applaud you for walking in and saving your own life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My parents have come to an open meeting on every one of my anniversaries. I guess we won't do that this year, to support me in doing all of that. And I think each time, and they went to York Street last time, and so they were just sort of like, we're so glad you have your social club, Jen. That's what they call AA, my social club.
Your social
And your friends from your social club. Like a supper club in the
I
50s.
love that. Like it's a country club kind of.
But yeah, but it's, it's
Social
it's-
club.
It's our tribe, and I think we can spot each other.
I think you're right. Well, we're about to wrap up. So any burning desires?
No, yes, Alfredo. I think that God is working through you, through this podcast.
Amen.
And I just felt the need to say that. So there you go.
Oh, well, we're going to start off with that. That's for sure.
Well,
Just kidding.
but doubling down, like hearing the message from other alcoholics on podcasts and YouTube speakers and all of that has been a really big part of my sobriety.
Yeah.
And my heart just sings with joy that you're doing this, man. And if you need any support or help, I'm in, because I
You guys
just
are
think
helping
this is
right now.
awesome.
It's going to be awesome.
Well, shoot, this is
You guys
easy,
will be
right? Like,
back.
this is just a meeting.
Yeah, well, you know,
Forever on the internet.
Yes.
I've had the idea for a couple of years, like, I want to do this, because I listen to podcasts, and I'm like, oh, that looks easy. If anybody can do that, I can do that. But I just never did it.
And you have the voice.
I'm sick of my story too, by the way. I'm sick of myself.
Are you?
And I haven't heard your story yet, so maybe
I
it's
can't.
time for
I
that.
don't know about that.
Ooh, I
do.
think Kristen should interview Alfredo
Jen
and get his
seconds my motion.
story.
That
Alfredo.
could be cool. Well, because I've been, like I said earlier, just at home, and I'm like, God, I'm not like, I can't go to work. I can't really do nothing. I just had the
I mean,
thought,
I guess you
I
could
think
record
it's,
one by yourself.
I think
and
it's
then
time to
send it
just do
us.
this thing, you know?
I love that you followed through on it. I mean, like, I passed it on to my husband and other people, and I cried when I heard Kristen's, and I cried the second time I heard Kristen's, and I
pretty
really
sure I
want to
cried
meet
too.
Arlene because she sounds amazing.
Oh, I will take you to meet Arlene.
Who's
We know
Arlene?
Arlene.
I want to hear Arlene's.
You got to catch up on the podcast,
Oh,
Kristen.
yeah, you're going to show me after.
41 years sober. I just had lunch with her yesterday, or actually pie.
I want to be
Yes.
friends with her, so hook us up.
You got it. All right. That was awesome, guys. Thank you so much for showing up. I got a lot out of this, so I think we'll wrap up then.
Thank
Right?
you.
Yeah, thank you.
Keep coming back.
It works
right.
if you work
It
it.
works if you work it.
When I was in Richmond, I went to a meeting where they, at the end, and it was amazing. I was the only white person in this meeting, and it felt like a barber shop. And I think there were maybe only two women, and so these big burly dudes who carried a beautiful message. At the end, they went, keep coming back. It works if you work it. And this guy with this booming, deep voice goes, and if you don't, you die.
That's a perfect way to end this.
Dude, it
I
was
love
awesome.
That wraps up episode 6 of the Recovery Edgecast. I'd like to thank our guests, Cody, Jen, and Kristen. It was awesome. We're going to do it again. Thank you for listening. Don't forget, you can find us on Spotify or iTunes, and pretty much wherever you like to subscribe to podcasts. And of course at recoveryedgecast.com. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.